Violet, please say hello to everyone. Introduce yourself. And as I said, we have time, but we don't have a lot of time. So we'll have the responses. Let us make them as snappy. We want after this for people to follow up on this. So please introduce yourself. It would be good to hear, when did you join Liberty Christian Fellowship, if you can remember, and what is keeping you busy here and elsewhere. God bless you. Let's go.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good. So my name's Violet Kizito. Firstly, in terms of introducing myself, I'm a Christian. I love the Lord with all my heart. Secondly, I'm a wife to Mr. Kizito. I'm also a mom to 3 amazing children. Angelo, who's 14, going on 15. And then Azariah, who is 9, in the order that they're in, Liberty.
I think these were this end. Yeah.
Sorry about that. And then Azariah, who's 9, and Ariella, who's 8. And I'm also a business owner, so I own a business called Faith's Walk Healthcare Services.
Come on. Why aren't you celebrating? I want people to be cheerful today and celebrating, okay?
Yeah.
If I see you not celebrating, I'll be picking on you by name.
I'm also an investor and a developer. So I actually can't say. So I don't develop the products, but then I have a team of people that actually develop a software system that we're currently using in our business. And that's it, really. That's it, yeah.
Oh, wow, brilliant. Marvin, can we have that quadrant diagram, please? Because I want to refer to it as many times so that we see how applicable it is. Okay, so you've had the introductions. So, Violet, looking at this, talk us through where you have been before and where you are now.
Okay.
And if you can refer to the quadrants, that would be helpful as well.
Okay.
By the way, we have them up there as well.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, one thing I will say is I'm very proud to say that this year will be my 45th year. So I'm one of those women who's not afraid of actually talking about how old she is. I am 45 and very proud of that. So for the first 20 years of my life, I spent in the employee sector, and a proportion of it as well in the business. No, I would say self-employed. A proportion of it was dipping in and out. And then for the last 4-5 years, I went into the business owner sector. But with the investor, the funny thing about the investor side of things, I actually started investing when I was I think 23 or 22, and that started, and I'll tell you how that started. I'll make this quick. I used to work in Sainsbury's. Many of you will know Sainsbury's, and I'm grateful that I actually used to work with store managers. And one of the things that I think we don't feature, and I think Israel at some point needs to be given the opportunity to actually talk about his role and what it does, because one of the things we don't feature is the fact that there are some high career roles that we actually look down on, but we do not know that from a financial perspective, they pay quite a lot. Store managers earn more than prime ministers. Store managers actually earn more than doctors. I don't know if any of you know this.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I started investing was because I used to work with store managers as a business partner with store managers. And what happened, because, based on my background, when I got my bonus, I would take my family and would go to Bista Village and spend it all in one day.
Can you explain what is Bista Village?
So Bista Village is a designer outlet in Oxford, the borough of Oxford.
Don't pretend. Did you know that?
So the truth is, it's an embarrassing time of my life, but I actually acknowledge it because there's some learnings from there. We would spend 3,000 to 5,000 pounds all in one day buying useless clothes that in a year's time don't actually have any value. But what I found really interesting is when I then, when we caught up with the store managers and I was asking them, I said, okay, so you got your bonus, what have you done with it? what happened was, so the way Sainsbury's works its bonus system is Sainsbury's, so a store manager based on the size, so it's based on the size of the store, you would earn a certain amount of money. These guys usually get 70% of their salary given as a bonus based on whether they meet certain targets. Now that bonus is not usually paid out in cash. Normally what the company will do is to pay maybe 15% of it as cash. The other 65%, if you've earned, is then put into the salary, the company share save scheme, and that amount of money actually stays in that share save scheme for 3 years, and at the end of those 3 years, the store managers actually take that out tax-free. Tax-free.
Wow.
So for those that are performing year in, year out, they're always pulling out a lot of money tax-free on top of all their benefits, including their salaries. So why I decided to become an investor was I started asking them about these things, because most of the time when that money came out, it usually was a large lump sum of money. These people had what they called personal investors or stockbrokers, and they would consult with those people and get them to actually invest that money. But I couldn't afford that. So what I decided to do was teach myself how to invest. And that's when I started investing, and that was the money. So some of you can find some videos of mine on YouTube. That was the money that we actually used to put a deposit on our house.
Wow. Wow. Now, please allow that as we go through this, we're going to try and draw some particular lessons from things that Violet shares. Okay? So one of the ideas there is people you associate with. Because what I'm hearing, you're intentionally looking for these store managers.
I was working with
them.
And looking at how they manage
Some
their
of us,
money.
when we go to work at 5 o'clock, we just want to run out.
No.
When they say there is a Christmas do, we're like, man, I don't want to go with these guys to the pub or to the restaurant, isn't it? And I'm not saying go to the pub and drink, yeah? But we don't want to associate with people who've got the knowledge. And you did some reading as well. Okay, that's really good to hear. So you have said you are in the employee sector and a bit of self-employed. What is the difference there to you?
Employee and self-employed. So with employee, obviously you have all your, I need to stop saying but all your taxes and pension and all your deductions are usually made at the point of earning. So you get paid and your employer gives you all these benefits, and then they tax you, and that's taxed at the point then you get your salary. I usually struggle with the difference between net and gross, but I think gross is the one that I struggle between the two of them. I only know it when I look at it in detail, but I think gross is before tax.
Gross is before the deductions.
Then net is, yeah, so for an employed employee, you get your net at pay. For a self-employed person, you work, you usually don't get benefits. So some companies at the moment, I'm not so sure if Uber still does that, but some companies at the moment will still allow you to be self-employed because there's certain aspects or benefits that come with being self-employed for the company as well. So you earn all your money, but you're paid it without any deductions at all, and then you file your own tax returns. Now, the benefits and the differences between the two. So with employee, you have benefits like sick pay, pension. When I worked with Sainsbury's, we also had life insurance, which is what kept, it's not even actually life insurance. In other words, when you died in service with Sainsbury's, your family, depending on how many years you had worked, your family would get 3 to 5 years lump sum payment at the point at which you passed away. That was one of the reasons I was actually kept in Sainsbury's for 16 years, but at some point I just had to take the leap and say, no, I need to go. This is not going to tie me down. Whereas with self-employed, you make your own deductions. Now the benefits of that, you can deduct certain things and pay less tax than you would pay as an employee.
Brilliant. That's good. Thank you so much. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm seated here. I'm thinking, I have my job. I know when I need to go to work. I know when I need to finish work. I have a good boss. Yeah. I know what I'm going to be paid, so I can even plan my budget for the whole year. Why would I want to disrupt that? Why would I want to trouble myself? Actually, last week I looked at my pension statement, as in projected pension statement, and all those in-service death grant and all of that you've described. why would I want to disturb myself to look into this area, business and investor? What was it for you?
I think it's personal to everyone, but the one thing I will say, from my perspective, I personally believe that if God has ordained you for more, and if you feel that you're actually capable of more, I find, in my opinion, that being employed usually ties you down because someone puts you in a box and decides your worth. Although, I do also believe that it's knowing your worth, because if you know your worth, you can actually negotiate better benefits. So, for example, if you look at people like the heads of big companies, corporate organizations, FTSE 100, 250, FTSE 200, they negotiate massive contracts. And in most cases, those people are actually not self-employed, because normally what happens, and I know this because I've worked inside the organization, they actually own companies. So when someone, let's say, let me talk about an organization that I know, I'm familiar with. So someone like Sainsbury's, Justin King, what they do is they create a company. So when you're coming to employ them, you're not employing the employee, you're employing the organization. And that organization negotiates those benefits for them. So even though they are employed by Sainsbury's, there are certain things that they will want. And normally what you find is they'll have massive shares, owns massive shares of the organization. The amount of money they get is a lot. The profits that they get if the organization succeeds is a lot. So in my opinion, and for me, I felt that, and especially when I look at the person that I am and the characteristics that I have, the unconscious bias that some people might have towards me, I felt that being employed was limiting myself. Whereas being a business owner and self-employed allowed me to fulfill and use that God-given gift, an ordained gift that God has actually given me. The amount of money that I currently manage is more than I've actually ever managed in my whole life. So I think it's individual and different for every single person. I wouldn't say being employed is a bad thing. I wouldn't say any of these things in the cash flow quadrant is a bad thing. What I will say is that you need to know your worth in order for you to negotiate the best value and return on investment on what you're giving for the time that you're giving to that organization or company or whatever it is you're in.
Okay, brilliant. That is really, really good. And some of these things around worth are good statements that we make. And especially people who hold the mic, you stand here and say, you're worth, you're more than, all those things. What does that mean?
Okay. It depends on what aspect we're asking it from. Is it from a work aspect?
Finance.
From
For us, we were talking finance here.
Aspect. Okay.
Yeah. Money.
So, okay, from a money aspect. Okay. When I look at it from my perspective as a business owner, what I look at as my worth is, okay, if I was to create an organization, how much return on investment can I get from this organization by driving it to the greatest lengths that I can drive? So I'll never forget, I was having a discussion with one of my business partners, who's actually my husband, and I said to him, I said, we need to be projecting to get at least 2 million in terms of income from the business this year. That was about, and my husband said to me, and it's not something my husband said to me, was like, yeah, but what's the profit we are making? What's the profit we are making? Because when he actually said that, and we calculated it, we calculated the cost of sales, how much we'd be paying in terms of our employees, it didn't really add up to a lot. So the worth is what you get after you've paid your corporation tax, your profits, and everything that you need to pay. What do you then earn as an individual? For me, that's your worth from a financial perspective. From an investor perspective, obviously investment is different. There are some people that invest short term. I don't do that. You know, people that do short selling. I do also feel to an extent Bitcoin is also an aspect of short term investment. But for a long term investor, what you ask yourself is, if I invest in this organization, how much return on investment am I going to make after the deductions of corporation tax? And that will be your worth, or your portfolio and your worth at the end of it.
That's really good. For those who came in later on, I've got my phone on me here. If you want to ask a question, please send me your question, and I'll try to incorporate it into the questions. So thank you very much. Are you guys understanding? Eh? Are you guys okay? So, from my reading of books and also practically what I've tried to do, I don't mind sharing a bit of mine. I've majored mainly in the employee and the investor side because I really love my job and I feel fulfilled in my job. So what I've done is to look out for investments where I don't have to be present, but I put money there so that money works for me. That's what we've tried to do as a family for that. And for some people, it might be business, but the key thing is that's what we are trying to look at. I don't know where you are as a person. So, you do business with your husband and sister. Okay, so you're in partnership. If there's someone here who has a vague idea, and an idea can be, I don't like the marks on the floor, and I want to start a business that can help remove this. And that's all they have. They've got all this fear in them that they are black, that they will never be able to do this, or they are too old, or it's too late. Maybe if I had done that 20 years ago, what would you tell them right now? They're seated in the audience.
Okay. What I would say is, first of all, it's never too late. That's the truth. It's never too late, because if I'm right, and you can go and check this out, the guy that started KFC started it at 60, right? So it is never too late. But what I would say to that person, starting means different things. So it could be starting with terms of coming up with the idea or drafting a plan of what you're going to do when. First and foremost, you need to be very clear on when you're going to start or when you want to start. You also need...
When you say very clear, does that mean maybe I want to start in a year's time or 6 months?
You have to have a vision. So I know I talk, and most of you that have had me speak, you'll normally hear me talk about vision. You need to have a very clear vision. And the clear vision is that destination. It's not the final destination, but obviously it could be a vision in terms of, let's say, a year, 6 months. But ultimately, what do you want to do? And let me share it from the perspective of, there's someone in not here right now, but someone within the church that actually approached me and asked me and said they wanted me to mentor them on business, and I agreed. I said, that's fine. So I said to them, okay, can you just tell me what you've done so far? Where do you see this idea going? And the person said to me, I want to sell this. And I said to them, okay, you want to sell this in what form? How much do you want to make out of it? That was their vision. Their vision was, I want to sell this. You need to be very clear as to where you want to go. So, for example, one of the things we did when we started out, I remember saying to myself, we want to make the best, the largest organization in the whole of the UK. That was the vision at the time. And some of you might go back onto the LCF videos and remember me standing up some time back at Camberwell and saying, I will be the next billionaire. God help me. But anyway, so...
You're there.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is you need to have a very clear vision, because when you have that clear vision, it then forms the foundations of everything. Now, in terms of being black, the truth of the matter is, first and foremost, there's being black, then there's competition. In terms of being or having that, being different from everyone, I guess one of the things that you talked about was biblical principles. Everything that I do is based on faith. Everything that I do is based on faith. And I like to believe that I'm speaking to Christians. If you believe that you've had that one-to-one with God and you've told him what you want to do and he's clarified for you what you want to do and the fact that that's where you need to be going, and yes, you have fear, you're worried about not making it, the truth of the matter is, if you don't work hard, yes, you're not going to make it. If you don't do things correctly, you're not going to make it. You need to have a clear vision, and you need to start at some point. And starting could be drafting a plan. It starts with drafting a plan. Every business owner must have a business plan. You have to have a business plan. If you don't have a business plan, you may start, you may last maybe 3 to 6 months, you will fail. if you don't have a business plan. You have to have a business plan, because that business plan starts out as a business plan. At some point, you might change it into your 100-day plan. At some point, you then change it into the quarterly strategy. At some point, it then changes into your yearly strategy. So it carries on changing with each step that you make. But the first thing is to have a business plan, because it clears everything out for you. It will contain your mission, your vision, your goals, what you need to do in terms of finances, anyone that you need to work with. It would contain all of that.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, just for you to know that you might still be seated there and thinking, okay, thank you, that's all so good, but how do I start that next step, the vision even? But as Violet has said, start writing down some things. Yep. Then find someone you can talk to. I know Violet is very helpful, but come to us and tell us if you want us to find you someone who you can talk to. Okay? Or if you know someone outside, they don't have to be in this congregation, and you want to talk to them, please do. Because we want to be financially prosperous. Amen? And we're going to be very bold about this. So, there are some challenges that I'm sure come all the way. Is that the time?
I'm looking at the
This
time.
is not fair.
No, it's fine.
This, honestly, is
Fine.
not fair.
I'm looking
Okay.
forward to the sermon.
How how have you been able to overcome, the biases or the challenges, people telling you, and I'm just making this up, I don't know, you are a black woman, you won't make it, you are not born in this country. Some of us in work, it's the accent that has been an issue, and you're thinking, oh my God, am I going to get anywhere with this? How have you, is there one thing, one or
Okay.
two things, briefly, that
Okay.
you tell people?
I think in my sector, the one thing I'm going to start with is we'll find a lot of people usually say there are a lot of black people in care. That's a fact, yes. But there are not a lot of care directors. They're not. Most of them are usually managers, employees, but there are not a lot of care. Directors, and that needs to change. That focus needs to change. So in terms of starting, as I said, first of all, let me talk about, you asked me when I joined Liberty. I joined Liberty in 2017. My daughter was about 6 months. I remember that so clearly. I remember who I met. I joined Liberty in 2017. And from that time, I had this desire in my heart that I was worth more and I could do more. I'm one of these people who sits in church and I write a lot, and some people might say, why is she always writing? You see the books in front of you. That's one of the reasons I brought them. So this section here, the one that has the orange on top of it, that's 2021, and that was when we started our business. These are my journals. And then the book in the middle is the one that I used to write down the things I had to do then in 2021. And then you have these books here at the end, the black one, and then there's some at the bottom. That's 2024, and this one as well that I've got in front of me. I come into church, I write down whatever's being taught. I'm a practical Christian. What does that mean? To all the young people and to everyone in this church, you guys, we come in and we sing and we cry and we say, oh God, heal me. We pray that God is the God who can heal the dead. Surely if he can heal the dead, he can also help us with our everyday life. But the reason as to why we normally struggle is because we put God in our own boxes and then we look at our limitations. The reason I journal, the reason I come in and I write things down is because I take them and I listen to them again. Last Sunday when I attended, Pastor Lincoln, you preached on the vision, and you preached on the vision for last year, multiply. And I sat there and I actually said to myself, it's really interesting because what you didn't do, you didn't break down, Pastor Lincoln, the fact that you broke it down, but it would have been good to actually look at a visual representation of what had been achieved in 2024 because it was major. This church used to be empty and it's growing, but everything on that vision was achieved. Now, when I went home that day, I listened to that sermon 3 times. Ask my children. And my husband said to me, my son actually said to me, why are you listening to it again? Why? And I said, because I need to make sure that I actually listen and understand everything that he's saying. So I come into church, and I know I've missed a number of services over the last Yeah, and there's a reason for that. It's not because I'm being neglectful, no. And it's not okay. There'll always be a reason and there'll be an excuse. But I write down what I listen. And I ask myself, what area of my life can I apply that to? What is the pastor speaking to me about? So you ask the question, yeah? How do you start, or how do you get over the challenges? I take the word for me and I apply it in my life. When I started Faith's Walk with the people that I'm working with, there was no room for failure. No room for failure at all. I looked at the fact that was what God wanted for me. God speaks to us all in different ways. It's what he wants. And someone, look, we haven't got time, and sometime we can talk about it someday. But when you know in your heart, because it's in your heart that God speaks to, if you know in your heart that this is what God wants you to do, and you have equipped yourself with the skills and the resources, you have to take the step, because you may not see the whole step. So for example, looking at this right now, we cannot see a step behind that TV, but there is a step. You have to take that step, because at some point as you keep going up, the step carries on going up. So that's the best way that I can summarize it, and I acknowledge the fact that it doesn't actually answer all those questions. In terms of the challenges, yes, there were a number of challenges, but I'll also refer you back to Steve Jobs' commencement speech that he gave to the graduates in Stanford University. I think it was 2025, where he talked about why he dropped out of university, when he dropped out of university, the courses that he took then, and how they actually helped him build the Apple that we all see today and some of us even revere. My background speaks a lot for where I am at the moment, how I was able to overcome all the challenges, why I'm able to sit here. And in some cases, I usually say, for anyone that wanted to start a franchise business in 2021, you needed to have £100,000. Now, I know that because I supported the organization that I was working with at the time, recruit franchisees. But I was able to be that £100,000 because of my faith and the skills and the resources and my background.
Hey! Now, I need to speak to the powers there be, because we need Violet back next week. Are you available next week?
Yes, I think I can be.
Don't you guys feel that we are not going to be able to exhaust this? But guys, did you hear? Because this is what typically happens, and I've been here before. I've gone through this. We come to Liberty Christian Fellowship, and we undermine what is spoken at the front here. From the praise and worship leader, from the one leading the service, from the people preaching, and words that are given. But did you hear the stewardship that goes on here? I was blown away by the writing, and I'm blown away from the number of times you've listened to Pastor Lincoln's sermon.
Yeah.
And asked yourself, how does this apply to me? Because Pastor Lincoln, what typically happens, when Pastor Lincoln says, let's multiply MCs and everything, we follow that, but we forget that we need to then ask ourselves, how do I multiply in my business? How do I multiply at work as well? So he's not going to stand here and say everything that concerns you, but he's going to give that generic message that we need to take away. But we can only do this if we are writers.
And in different ways, though. I'm old school. That's why I have all of this. And the one someone that actually did it for me was, I don't know if you remember. So in 2021, Pastor Tony preached on the servant girl. And I think it was a soldier, the soldier that was asked by Elijah, was it Elijah, to go and wash himself in the river 7 times? And was it the servant girl that actually recommended to the commander to actually go and see Elijah? And Pastor Tony in that sermon preached about the fact that he asked himself, and he was like, how could the servant girl be bold enough to go and speak to her master, for the master to go and speak to the soldier in order to go and ask him to wash himself. And for me, that sermon made me say to myself, if that servant girl was bold enough, I am bold enough to believe that my God is the God of all things and he is going to help me. And I stepped out. That was it.
Wow. Brilliant. Brilliant. Amazing. Now, I've got quite a number of questions that have come through. As I've said, we are not going to be able to go through all of them. So it's nothing personal. And some of the things we were going to address next week because of these questions. Okay? So I want to be disciplined with time because it's 10:44 and we need to finish. Okay? Now, if there is anyone in here who wants to talk to Violet or who needs support with starting, please say so. When you keep quiet, if that servant girl hadn't said something, if you don't say something, the woman with the issue of blood, if you don't touch the helm of Jesus, nothing happens. So let us be doers. Okay? Why don't we appreciate Violet for today?